Good morning everyone, welcome to a new market update, and today we're going to discuss Zilliqa and Litecoin. But before we're going to discuss it, please subscribe to the channel, as that's the only way this channel is going to grow, and it's growing really fast, so that is great. And the market is doing well as well, so that's benefiting as well. What did we see? We did see a very big move of Zilliqa in the previous days after we have tested levels for support. And every time when something starts to run, you should identify levels to take the entries from, which we have been doing in this entire construction. We have been covering Zilliqa all the time, in which we saw this falling wedge construction break out towards the resistance at 350 sets. We see that the 350 sets level was a support previously, and we rejected on that zone. And given that we had this run, we anticipated that based on the higher time frames, and then we have to check the daily and not the 3-day chart, we can construct a few levels to start a swing trade, right? So we identified this gray zone here. We identified this zone around 200 sets. Those two ones are the ones you want to get an entry from. That is the same concept as right now with some coins that are doing really well. You don't want to chase that pump. You want to look for entry points in the correction. So you don't want to chase the trade here. The only reason you want to jump into Zilliqa or any other coin when it's going that vertical is to go for day trades. But if you want to anticipate a swing trade, you're going to look at the daily time frame or higher time frames and follow the levels that are coming from those zones or time frames. In this case, we have been constructing this gray zone. We have been saying that that is the area that we want to have interest. If that is lost, you clearly don't want to see it lose the 120 set zone, given that we have the construction of making new higher highs and higher lows, regardless of the strength of a project through the fundamentals. As I've been saying, that platforms have to do well first and then the rest can follow suit, and Zilliqa is one of those platforms that I'm heavily focused on. So what did we see in the previous days? We did see that this 180 zone is providing support, and after that a big impulse wave upwards, and given that we don't have many levels in between, the first real runner gave the resistance at 350 sets. Then we get to the conclusion that you should not be taking the trade from that zone or from 350 sets. You're going to look at levels again for potential support based on the daily time frame. So when we're looking at the higher time frames, we can see that we're just barely waking up. If we compare this one to AV, for instance, I hope the chart is clean. It's not. Okay, fine. We are still around this zone here. So constructing an idea of Zilliqa going to $5 to $7, I still believe that that is a very possible outcome, given the fact that the market is going to surprise you on the upside more than you can expect it to do. So I'm anticipating a very big year, maybe years for crypto, as we are getting that super cycle, and in that super cycle prices will be exceeding your expectations heavily, just like AV has been doing. When we get to the daily chart from Zilliqa, we can see that there is not really any level to look for potential support. This is the first area you want to look for, given that that is a previous resistance zone and that is a compression period. So then we are looking at 4-hour time frame, and there we go. We have got our confirmation that if you want to look for swing trade approaches, that is the zone to go for. If you look for day trade approaches, you're going to look at the 1-hour time frame, and we might be getting into an entry, but that is not the point of this update. What most likely is going to occur is that we're going to have some more consolidation, might be making another higher high, in which we start consolidating afterwards, and then get the real move during the summer, in which Zilliqa is going to expand heavily towards probably 635, but most likely around the 1000 sats zone. If we see the USD chart, I apologize for the amount of stuff that's on there, but we have been discussing the construction that we have here. So we did see a big impulse wave to the upside, after which we have been rejecting at the previous resistance zone around 9 cents. We said the 6-3 zone, so the area a little higher, and the range around 5 cents are interesting for dips, given that there used to be a resistance, given that there is also the compression that we always look for, right? We see this compression as we just discussed On the Bitcoin pair, we also see the compression there. This is where you look for potential entry points. In this case, it gave us that entry point, and after that, we see a new impulse wave, and we constructed that based on a Fibonacci extension tool, and we reached the first target zone. The next target zone, if Zilliqa might get another impulse wave, is found around 25 cents, and then we make a new all-time high. I think it's still just the start of a new entire cycle. So what you're looking at for Zilliqa USD right now is that you're looking at this zone around 10 cents, 10 to 11 cents, and in the worst case, we get a retest of 9 to 8.5. You don't want to see the price of Zilliqa drop that much lower, but you can see that there is heavy confluence with the Bitcoin chart that gives us another retest around this zone, and then we get towards the 10 to 11 cents area. So that is how to identify your trades, given that if you were anticipating a rally here or you were entering around 8 cents, your downside is significantly larger than when you are going to be a little bit more patient, taking the trade lower, given that you've got those historical price action points to enter from. And if you take it from there, your target was easily defined here, and you would have made a wonderful 200% trade. So the better you make your entry, the easier it is to keep that trade going and make profits from it. The higher your entry is, and the worse or the more you can lose, the worse your risk reward will become. So that is the first step of becoming a reliable trader, is making your entry better and better and better. If your entry becomes a better starting point, it doesn't really matter where you take your profits, as your entry is fine as well. So you are more flexible in taking profits as your approach for the long term is more consistent and more profitable. So this is a beautiful example of how those markets are going. Then we've got another one, which is Litecoin, with a similar example. We did see a nice impulse wave previously, support resistance flip, acceleration, lower time frame, bearish divergence, and then you're going to look at daily levels for potential support. This gray box gives us an entry point. We have been testing it several times. That is a trigger. Most likely you don't see any social media engagement in that zone at all, but that is your trigger. Then you're going to use this low or this low and this high for the Fibonacci, and then you can construct your target point, which is hit nicely for an 85% move. So right now, if you want to enter Litecoin, you're going to look at any of this compression and retests here. In the worst case, we're going to look at this level. So those two zones are the ones where you want to start entering Litecoin, as Litecoin is also just starting up the bull cycle, might get a further correction down, but then we're going to adapt it as well. If this is going to be an impulse wave, another one afterwards, you want to look for those entry points. Then the interesting part is Litecoin against Bitcoin. It's still trending down, but there's something that I'm heavily interested in. First of all, this price construction looks quite identical to the price construction we had previously in 2019. So still lower lows, lower highs, but at the end we break up, make a higher low. What do we see here? We do see that we have an increase of volume with some potential bullish divergence on higher time frames, with a double bottom test, and now we're looking for that higher low. If that happens, most likely we get a new impulse wave at a later stage this year, or like from April, May onwards towards those highs, granting a new massive move on Litecoin, with possibly, if this happens, with possibly big new all-time highs, maybe even 1K. That is very likely to occur. But this construction of the chart, I'm heavily interested in a new higher low. If that happens, we can continue moving upwards significantly. And that is seen on many of those charts. For instance, NEO slightly waking up, has to flip some levels as well. If that happens and we construct that, or we make a higher low in this zone again, we might be seeing massive moves all across the board. But Litecoin is on the watch, Zilliqa is on the watch for the dips. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again tomorrow for a new video and a live stream, hopefully without a call, so I can still focus on that. But enjoy your Sunday, enjoy your Valentine's Day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.